A book nobody can read, a statue that is somehow older than farming, and a bronze machine that predicted eclipses. Today we're going to look at 10 artifacts we still don't understand, tell you what the best evidence says, and leave you with a simple rule to separate legends from mysteries that are actually worth your time. You're so welcome. Now look, most ancient mystery videos on this very platform, they kind of treat rumors as facts. What we're going to do today is go the other way. Proof first, excavators, labs, museums, reputable scientists, that kind of thing, and then we'll get to the weirdness that surrounds it. And when there are two good explanations, we'll weigh them both, and you can too. Let's jump in. The Voynich manuscript. Okay, so in 1912, there's a book dealer, and his name is Wilfrid Voynich, and he walks into a Jesuit villa near Rome, and he buys a manuscript that will proceed to mess with every codebreaker for the next century. Today, it's sitting in Yale's Benecke Library. As 240 pages of vellum carbon dated to somewhere between 1404 and 1438. And here's the thing, this is real. It is genuinely medieval. That's what carbon dating does. It proves it. But nobody can read it. But here's where the shit gets really weird. Some scholars think it's the most elaborate hoax in all of manuscript history. Others, though, they swear it's a real language, some sort of unbreakable cipher. And if it is a code, then we're talking about something that survived the best cryptanalyst of World War II. You know, the people who cracked the Nazi Enigma machine, so they know a thing or two. So how do we know it's real? Well, the vellum is definitely medieval. The radiocarbon dating showed that, no questions there. The inks and the paints are period appropriate. They're chemically verified. If you open this thing up, though, you'll find some truly bizarre botanical sections full of impossible plants that no botanist on Earth would recognize. Naked figures seemingly bathing in interconnected pools of green liquid. Yes, it is very weird. And astronomical diagrams with zodiac symbols you recognize sitting right next to text that might as well be from Mars. And it's not like nobody has tried to decrypt this. In the 1940s, William and Elizabeth Friedman, basically the power couple who invented American cryptanalysis, spent years on this thing and they got absolutely nowhere. John Tiltman, the guy who cracked the Soviet codes for fun, completely defeated. The NSA's own internal newsletter, and yes, they absolutely have one of those, why wouldn't they, once called it the most mysterious manuscript in the world. But here's the fun part. Yale put high-resolution scans of all 240 pages online. Every single one. So literally anyone with a laptop can have a shot at glory. But spoiler alert, you're probably not going to be able to crack it. And here's the thing, the text does have statistical patterns that do look like real language. Letter frequencies, word lengths, even something that looks like grammar structure. It behaves like a language should behave, it just doesn't seem to actually be a language. The Voynich manuscript has basically become the ultimate testing ground for new decipherment techniques, and let's be real, a graveyard for overconfident academics. Every few years, someone announces that they've actually solved it, they make some headlines, they get their 15 minutes, and then they quietly slink away when actual linguists are like, no dude, you didn't. Turkish television series, proto-Romance languages, medieval women's health manuals, alien communication has all been proposed. It's all been completely debunked. You know what this thing's really taught us? That a genuine medieval manuscript created with real materials by real human hands can be stranger and more resistant to explanation than any modern hoax could ever be. The Voynich manuscript basically proves that data without context is just a locked door, and sometimes even when you've got the best mathematical keys in human history, even when you've got computers and AI and every cryptographic trick that we've invented, you just can't figure it out. Rome's 12-sided problem. Alright, here's an interesting thing. Since the 1700s, archaeologists have been pulling these weird little bronze objects out of Roman sites across Britain, France, and Germany. See a picture of them on the screen now. We're talking 120 to 130 of these things at this point. They are dodecahedra, hollow, 12-sided geometric puzzles about the size of a baseball, because scientists love giving things multiple names when weird bronze ball thing would do just fine. And here's what drives historians pretty crazy. Not a single Roman author ever bothered to mention what the hell they were for. Not one. So, what on earth were they? Were they some sort of survey equipment for Roman engineers, candle holders? Medieval academics literally wrote papers arguing for candle holders. There's even a viral video out there claiming that they are ancient glove knitting tools. Or maybe they're ritual objects for some sort of mystery cult. I mean, take your pick. Nobody has proven, and that includes the glove people. Don't come at me in the comments. Those videos do not prove anything, I promise. So, what do we actually know? Well, each one has 12 pentagonal faces, but Here's where it gets a bit odd. Every face has a different sized circular hole. There's tiny ones, there's pretty large ones. The little bronze knobs also stick out from every corner. Why? Nobody knows. Most are bronze, though a couple of stone ones do exist because apparently why not? They show almost no wear patterns, which is strange for something that's supposed to be a tool. There's no inscriptions, no numbers, no helpful this side up carved anywhere. Nothing. Britain alone has coughed up over 30 of them, and then in 2023, archaeologists at Norton Disney, which is a real place apparently, found something extraordinary. A pristine 4th century dodecahedron still sitting in its original archaeological context, carefully placed with late Roman pottery. This wasn't something somebody dropped on their way to take a So, that Norton Disney find, this thing was deliberately deposited almost ceremonially. Not exactly how you would treat measuring tape or a candle holder, is it? But here's an even stranger pattern. These objects only turn up in the northwestern provinces. Britain, Gaul, the Rhine frontier, not one from the Mediterranean heartland where all the writers actually lived and wrote down. It's like finding smartphones only in Alaska and absolutely nowhere near Silicon Valley. It just doesn't really make any sense. Every new discovery with proper context kills another pet theory, one by one. The knitting demonstration makes for a fantastic YouTube video, but the archaeology keeps pointing towards something symbolic, something ritual. The rangefinder theory was another one that worked great until we found ones with holes too varied to be standardized. The gaming dice theory died when someone pointed out that the holes are all different sizes. Turns out that matters. Each solution sounds perfect until you actually hold it up to the evidence, and then it all falls apart. Here's the thing. Some Roman, somewhere, knew exactly what these things were for. They probably had a boring-ass name for it, they used it once a month, and they never imagined future people would need it explained to them. But that knowledge died with the Empire, and now we're left with 130 really beautiful, precisely made riddles that refuse to give up their secret. The clock that predicted eclipses. Okay, so in 1901, sponge divers are working off this tiny Greek island called Antikythera, and they spot some bronze statues in a Roman shipwreck, which is fantastic for them. But then they haul up this one particularly corroded lump, and nobody really gives about it. It looks like a rock with some bronze bits stuck to it. Just another chunk of ancient debris. But then it cracks open, and there are gears inside. These beautiful bronze gears from the 2nd century BCE, which, if you're keeping track, is over 2,000 years ago. Today, that mechanism sits in Athens' National Archaeological Museum, and we call it the world's oldest known analog computer. Because that's what it is. It's a computer made of bronze, built before Julius Caesar was even born. And this thing didn't just tell time, it modeled the entire cosmos as the Greeks understood it. You turn a crank and you watch the sun and the moon move through the sky. You keep turning and it would tell you when the next eclipse would darken the sky, not just this year, but years into the future. It tracked the complex 19-year metonic cycle, the wonky orbit of the moon, even the schedule for the Olympic Games, which was apparently really important. This is a machine that could tell you which years would need leap months 30 years out. The real breakthrough came in 2005 and 2006 when a Greek UK team aimed a high-resolution X-ray CT scanner at the fragments, the same tech that looks through your body at hospitals, but cranked it up to read ancient bronze. Suddenly, they could see inside the corroded metal. They could count individual gear teeth. They could read inscriptions that had been hidden in there for 2 millennia. They published it in Nature. This wasn't fringe archaeology. This was proper science. Those inscriptions turned out to be an instruction manual carved right into the metal. Then in 2021, a team from University College London went even further, proposing a complete front panel reconstruction that would track all 5 planets known to ancient astronomers: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. But here's what's humbling. Even with space-age scanners and all those inscriptions, we still can't agree on exactly how every gear train worked. There are multiple reconstructions out there, each one plausible, each one elegant, each one different. The UCL team has their version, Michael Wright has another, Tony Freeth another still. It's like having most of a Mozart symphony but arguing over the missing bars. We know it was really good, but we don't know the exact notes. This machine really did rewrite history. Before the Antikythera mechanism, the consensus was that Greeks were brilliant theorists, but the Romans were the engineers. The technology progressed in nice straight lines, that gearing this complex didn't appear until medieval clockwork. Well, no. This thing implies a whole tradition of precision bronze work that just vanished. No evolution, no gradual improvement leading into the medieval times. just a 1,000-year gap where humanity forgot how to build cool machines like this. We didn't see gearing this sophisticated again until astronomical clocks in the 1300s, over a millennium later. A Bronze Age text stamped like a record. In 1908, Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier is digging around in a Minoan palace on Crete when he finds something that shouldn't exist. A disc of fired clay about 16 centimeters across, which is roughly the size of a CD, if you need a mental image. A CD, young people, is about this big. Both sides are covered in symbols stamped in a spiral pattern, working from the outside edge toward the center. Nothing like it had ever been found before. Nothing like it has ever been found since. And here's the thing that really confuses archaeologists on this one. These symbols weren't carved or painted. They were stamped. They were pressed into wet clay with reusable seals. This was printing, movable type, in 1700 BCE. That's, for reference, about 3,000 years before Gutenberg. If this is what it looks like, someone in the Bronze Age invented printing, used it for exactly one disc that we know about, and then what? Forgot about it? Decided it wasn't worth the trouble? Or is this whole thing an elaborate early 20th century hoax, like a few skeptics still insist? Look at the numbers. 241 impressions made from 45 different stamp types. Someone carved 45 different seals, human figures, animal heads, tools, plants, geometric shapes, and carefully pressed them into soft clay in a continuous spiral. The symbols faced right, so you'd read it from the center outward, like playing a record in reverse. You could see it yourself at the Heraklion Archaeological Museum in Crete. Genuine Bronze Age clay, genuinely ancient, genuinely not understood. The Greek Cultural Ministry calls it unique, which is archaeological speak for we have no idea what this is and we can't compare it to anything. And that's the problem. With no second example, no bilingual text, no context beyond found in a palace basement, every attempted decipherment hits the same wall. One artifact is not a corpus. It's like trying to decode English with just a stop sign. It could be a hymn, it could be a treaty, a board game. It could be anything. Professional linguists have learned to spot the red flags. When someone claims they've decoded the disc, ask them to translate the other side. Doesn't go very well. The Phaistos disc has become the perfect cautionary tale for would-be code breakers. Every few years, someone announces that they have solved it, that it's ancient Greek, it's Anatolian, it's a lunar calendar, it's a prayer to the mother goddess, or some other shit like that. The press releases fly, the headlines pop, and then the actual experts check it, and it turns out that the translation is just wrong. Without a second text to verify against even the most elegant solution, it is still just an educated guess, if not just wrong. Once upon a time, someone somewhere could read every symbol on this thing as easily as you read a book. But that someone died 3,500 years ago, and they took the key with them. In all of Minoan civilization, in all of Bronze Age Greece, we've got one of these. A script at the end of the world. In the 19th century, Catholic missionaries rolled up to Rapa Nui, that's Easter Island, and they found something that shouldn't exist. The islanders had these wooden tablets covered in tiny carved figures, human forms, birds, fish, plants, geometric designs, all etched in neat little rows. And here's what made the European scholars be all like, the f*** is this? The writing system ran in reverse bostraphodon. That means you read one line left to right, then flip the tablet 180 degrees to read the next line. Which, why would that make sense? It's like reading a book where every other line is upside down and backward. Today, fewer than 30 of these things survive in museums worldwide, some of them ripped from their context by collectors who thought they were saving them. They weren't. If this is true writing, and that's still a massive if, then the Rapa Nui people did something only 4 or 5 cultures in human history have ever pulled off: inventing writing from scratch. No borrowing, no influence, no contact, just looked at the world and decided to trap language in wood. Mesopotamia did it, China did it, maybe the Maya, and maybe a tiny island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean did it too. Several lines look like they might be calendrical, tracking lunar months or seasonal cycles. Others could be genealogical, recording the kind of lineages the Polynesian cultures preserve in oral tradition. Just this year, 2024, researchers published direct radiocarbon dates of the wood itself in Nature, trying to answer the question that changes everything. Did Rongorongo exist before Europeans arrived in 1722, or was it inspired by seeing Western writing? The wood dates are suggestive but not definitive. One tablet's wood dates to the 1400s, but that's a problem, not really a solution, because here's the thing, dating wood isn't dating carving. Pacific Islanders were master recyclers. That 15th century wood could have been a canoe, then a house beam, and then finally a tablet carved in 1800. The corpus is just pathetically small. 26 authentic objects holding maybe 15,000 glyphs total. That's like trying to decode Chinese with a few fortune cookies, which aren't even really Chinese. Old Rapa Nui, the language itself, is barely documented, and the oral tradition that could have explained everything, it was shattered in the 1860s when Peruvian slavers kidnapped a third of the island's population, including every single person who could read the tablets. They took the last Rongorongo experts to die in guano mines half an ocean away. Modern science has at least killed the craziest theories, though. It's not about space aliens, and you can't read it by assigning random Polynesian words to birds. Yeah, someone really thought that was it. Serious scholars are working with Rapa Nui communities to revive the language, hoping that somewhere in the structure of modern Rapa Nui might be the ghost of what these tablets try to say. But every year that passes, every elder who dies takes us further from answers. We're not just trying to decode symbols here, we're trying to resurrect a conversation that was basically murdered. Rongorongo is a masterclass in how fast human knowledge can die. It took maybe one generation from the 1860s raids to 1880s for an entire writing system to go from living tradition to dead. These tablets went from sacred objects whose readers could chant for days to museum curiosities that no one can voice. Spreadsheets made of string. Across the Andes, the Inca Empire ran one of history's largest bureaucracies without writing. Well, without what we'd recognize as writing. Instead, they had kaipus. These were bundles of colored cord covered in knots that looked more like art than government documents. For a century after the Spanish conquest, scholars agreed that these were just accounting tools, ancient spreadsheets made of string, numbers, taxes, census data, nothing more. Some researchers now believe that certain kaipus may encode phonetic information, turning the Inca system into something pretty damn unprecedented, a three-dimensional logosyllabic writing system where color, twist, position, and knot all carry meaning. These people might have invented textile literature. The breakthrough started in 2018 when Manuel Medrano and Gary Urton did something brilliant and rather tedious. They took 6 quipus from Peru's Santa Valley and compared them to a 1670 Spanish census document from the exact same region. Line by line, knot by knot, they found correlations. Chord groups matched family units. Color patterns aligned with social hierarchies. This wasn't just counting people, it was naming them. And Sabine Hyland, an anthropologist working with communities near Lake Titicaca, was studying 2 18th century kaipus that villagers insisted were letters, actual correspondence between communities. Her analysis suggested that these special kaipus used combinations of fiber, color, and twist to represent syllables, not just numbers. But here's the thing, those letter kaipus, they're from the 1700s, centuries after Spanish contact. Special purpose may be influenced by European writing concepts. The vast majority of the 1,000-plus surviving kaipus still most convincingly explained as numerical records. The Santa Valley match is groundbreaking, but it's 6 kaipus out of hundreds. We might be looking at a system where 95% really is accounting, and only special examples carried names or narratives or other stuff like that. The numbers are solid, the words still hypothetical. What's changing everything is digitization. Scholars are building massive databases of kaipu data, every knot, every color, every twist, all searchable and comparable. Patterns that would take a human lifetime to spot pop out in seconds. Harvard's kaipu database project has detailed data on over 650 specimens. We're watching a decipherment attempt happen in real time, with machine learning starting to join the party. And maybe we'll crack this, maybe we won't, but at least now we can see patterns no single scholar could have spotted working alone with physical specimens. The kaipu forces us to rethink what writing even is. We're so used to flat surfaces, paper, stone, screens, that we forget information can live in 3 dimensions. Every kaipu is a database you can hold, a spreadsheet you can wear, a document that you can run through your fingers. The Inca looked at the problem of recording information and didn't reach for a pen as they started tying some knots. The jar that launched 1,000 clicks. In the 1930s, archaeologists digging near Ctesiphon in Iraq pulled a small clay jar out of the ground that would launch 1,000 clickbait articles. Inside was a copper cylinder, inside that an iron rod, all sealed with bitumen. It's pretty standard stuff until 1938, when Wilhelm Koenig, director of the Baghdad Museum, looked at it and declared that it found a 2,000-year-old electric battery. And since then, the internet has been losing its shit. Think about what this would mean if it's actually true. Ancient Parthians, these are the guys who fought Rome, running electricity through wires 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta invented the battery in 1800. Were they electroplating jewelry, running some kind of medical electrotherapy? Did ancient Baghdad have electrical devices while Europe was still figuring out aqueducts? Mythbusters literally built one of these things, filled it with lemon juice, and yeah, it produced about a volt of electricity. So case closed, right? Well, no, not so fast. I mean, yes, replicas can produce voltage if you fill them with acid, lemon juice, vinegar, whatever. But here's what's missing from the archaeological record. Wires. Not a single wire, no electrical connections, no electroplated artifacts that actually show evidence of electrical plating. When British Museum metallurgist Paul Craddock examined the electroplated objects, electroplated, that Koenig claimed as evidence, it turns out they were mercury gilded, a completely different process that doesn't involve electricity. Pen researchers point out that similar jars keep turning up in ritual contexts buried with incantation bowls and magical texts. We found dozens of these things now. If they were batteries, they were the worst batteries ever. No standardization, no wiring system, no electrical infrastructure, no mention in any ancient text. The boring truth? Probably just a storage jar. Maybe for sacred scrolls. The bitumen seal would protect papyrus from moisture. Maybe they were for ritual preparations. What they weren't is a battery. The technical journals have been picking apart this claim since the 1990s, and it just doesn't hold up. The voltage is pathetic, the design is inconsistent, and the complete absence of any electrical infrastructure pretty damn damning. You don't invent batteries in isolation, you need a whole system to make them useful. This battery has just become the perfect case study in how modern bias warps archaeological interpretation. We live in an electrical world, so we see batteries everywhere. Koenig lived through the electrical revolution, so when he saw copper, iron, and a container, his brain screamed battery. The Mythbusters proved it could work as a battery, but that's not the same as proving that it did ever work as one. I mean, I can use my laptop as a doorstop, but that doesn't mean that it is a doorstop. Every generation thinks ancient people were either much dumber or much smarter than they actually were. The truth is, they were kinda just as smart as us, just solving different problems. The Baghdad battery teaches us that can work in a lab and did exist in a culture are just completely different things. Just because something could theoretically function as technology doesn't mean anyone ever used it that way. Sometimes a jar is just a jar, even when it's a really weird jar that makes the internet oh so very excited. We're sorry to disappoint you. The Shroud of Turin. A length of linen kept in Turin Cathedral bears the faint image of a crucified man, front and back, like a full-bodied photograph printed on fabric, centuries before photography existed. For believers, it's the burial shroud of Jesus. For skeptics, it's just art. In 1988, science decided to settle that question. 3 independent laboratories, the University of Arizona, Oxford, and Zurich, took samples from one corner and ran accelerator mass spectrometry radiocarbon dating on it. The results were published in Nature, arguably the world's most prestigious scientific journal. So is this the actual burial cloth that wrapped Jesus of Nazareth, mysteriously imprinted with his image through resurrection energy or something like that? Or is it just a brilliant medieval creation made by some forgotten genius whose technique was so advanced that we can't fully replicate it? And here's the thing, even if it's medieval, nobody can agree on how the image was made. It's not painted, it's not burned, it somehow just seems to be encoded into the very structure of the linen fibers themselves. The 1988 tests were meticulous. 3 labs, working blind, all converged on the same date range, 1260 to 1390 CE. Medieval, not 1st century. The statistical confidence was overwhelming. The paper's cold language delivers the verdict with mathematical certainty. Critics, though, have spent decades attacking the sample. Was it contaminated? Was it from a medieval repair patch? Was the corner somehow different from the rest? But every peer-reviewed reanalysis keeps landing in the same medieval window. The data's about as solid as radiocarbon dating gets. Sorry about that, believers. The Vatican, to its credit, authorized the tests and accepted the results, though they've called for more research. But we still can't explain that image. The figure is essentially a photographic negative. It only looks right when you reverse the lights and darks, something discovered when it was first photographed in 1898. The image is superficial, sitting only on the outermost fibers. No pigments, no brush strokes, no artistic techniques from any era. Teams have tried everything from acid painting to bas-relief rubbing to radiation bursts. Some get close, but nothing perfectly reproduces all of the image's bizarre properties. So, we've got a medieval object made with a technique that nobody, medieval or modern, can fully explain. The shrouds become something more interesting than just a simple authenticity debate. It's shown how faith and science can coexist when both sides stick to what they actually know. The radiocarbon date is solid, it's medieval, the image formation is unexplained, it's still a mystery. Many believers have shifted from "it must be 1st century" to "God could create it whenever he wanted to create it." Oh, religion. Come on now. That's not... No. The object's meaning to millions of people didn't evaporate when the date changed. Meanwhile, skeptics have had to admit that debunking the age doesn't mean they can explain the how. The Shroud of Turin proves that when you move an object's timeline, you don't necessarily move its significance. Human beings needed this object in 1350, and apparently they still need it today. Perfect spheres, imperfect context. In the 1930s, the United Fruit Company was clearing Costa Rica's Diquís Delta for banana plantations when workers started hitting these stone spheres. They weren't rough boulders, they were nearly perfect spheres. Some the size of basketballs, others over 2 meters across and weighing about 15 tons. Hundreds of them scattered across the landscape like giants have been playing marbles or something. Today, UNESCO protects 4 sites where these spheres still rest, recognizing them as unique creations of pre-Columbian chiefdoms that controlled this region from 500 to 1500 CE. So, what were they for? Status symbols for chiefs? The bigger the sphere, the bigger the boss? Astronomical markers lined up to track celestial events? Territorial boundaries? Or, and here's where the internet goes wild, landing markers for ancient astronauts. It's not that. Also some out there theories, maps of Atlantis, evidence of lost sonic levitation technology, ancient aliens. It's all out there. Here's what we actually know, though. Over 300 spheres have been documented, carved from gabbro, limestone, and sandstone. The precision is stunning. Some are within millimeters of perfect sphericity, which apparently is a word, carved with nothing but stone tools. 4 sites still have spheres in their original positions: Finca 6, Batambal El Silencio, and Grajabala 2. At Finca 6, you can see them lined up in what appears to be a processional approach to important buildings. They're not randomly scattered, they did have purpose, but here's the problem. Most spheres are not where the Diquís people left them. United Fruit moved them, dynamited them, looking for treasure that didn't exist, or hauled them off to decorate bank headquarters and government buildings. And that's the killer. When people in the 60s and 70s started noticing alignments between spheres, they were often looking at modern arrangements. That perfect triangle of spheres pointing to magnetic north, bulldozed into position in 1943. The straight line of spheres pointing to Atlantis, created when someone decided they looked nice along a driveway. The original contexts, the arrangements that could tell us what they meant, were destroyed before anyone thought to map them. We're trying to read a book after someone threw all the pages in a blender. Recent archaeology at protected sites is finally giving us real data instead of speculation. At Finca 6, excavations show spheres marking approaches to mounded structures, probably chiefly residences. They seem connected to power, political and possibly spiritual. The work suggests processional routes, public display, social hierarchy made literally rock solid. The Atlantis theories? Of course, they've crumbled under any actual excavation. No hidden chambers, no ancient technology, no maps to lost continents, just really good stonework by indigenous people who didn't need aliens to help them achieve geometric perfection. When you rip objects from their context, when you bulldoze the ground they sat on for thousands of years, you're not just moving rocks, you're destroying information. Every relocated sphere made it harder to understand what they were for. The spheres remained perfect, but our ability to read them was shattered the moment they were moved. A wooden giant older than farming. In 1890, peat cutters working in Russia's Ural Mountains pulled something impossible out of the bog. It was a wooden statue carved from a single larch tree, covered in geometric patterns and topped with a haunting human face. Today, it stands at 2.8 meters tall in a museum in Yekaterinburg, but originally it towered at 5.3 meters. The bottom half was used as firewood before anyone realized what they'd found. And here's the thing. This thing is older than agriculture, it's older than pottery, it's older than any other monumental art on Earth. Hunter-gatherers made this. Ice Age hunter-gatherers. People we've been taught to imagine as barely scraping by, spending every moment searching for food, have found time to create a 17-foot wooden monument covered in symbolic art. They had time for beauty, complexity, and messages we can't read. This sculpture says that everything we thought we knew about civilization needs a bit of a rewrite. The dating story alone is pretty wild. First attempts in the 1990s suggested 9,500 years old, already ancient. Then in 2018, better samples, better techniques led to a conclusion of 11,600 years old. But a 2021 study in Quaternary International went even further, with multiple labs confirming an age of roughly 12,100 years. That's the early Holocene, just after the last ice age ended. When this was carved, mammoths still walked around Siberia. The artists who made this lived alongside the last of the megafauna. The preservation is meticulous. The acidic, antimicrobial environment of the peat bog kept the larch from rotting for 12 millennia. You can still see the tool marks from the stone axes. The sculpture's covered with patterns, zigzag lines, chevrons, cross-hatching, and at least 8 human faces stacked along its length, all staring in different directions. It looks like a code. It looks like it's trying to tell us something, but without any comparative tradition, without similar artifacts to create a pattern, we're just guessing. Is it a boundary marker, a mythological narrative, a genealogy, a map? The geometric patterns might be pure decoration, or they might be the Mesolithic equivalent of scripture. We have the text. We just don't have a Rosetta Stone for it. The idol destroys the neat story of human cultural evolution. We're taught that monumental art comes with agriculture. You need food surpluses before you can spare time for giant sculptures. But here's proof the hunter-gatherers were creating massive ritual art while glaciers were still retreating. The Shigor idol might be the sole survivor of an entire tradition of wooden monuments that spanned continents. We're just seeing one frame of a lost movie. Thank you for watching.